This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Your boy JVT is going through a lot of emotions as we welcome you into this Wednesday edition of Money Moves. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. He is just staring down the Applebee's commercial that is on the television screen to our right. You're hungry this morning?
I am. I didn't eat breakfast this morning. Had a little bit of a rush this morning. Had a lot of stuff going on. You are a former Apple buddy. Is that what the term was?
Hell yeah.
That's where Bill discovered you. That's how the show was put together, actually. I was discovered as a star at a Starbucks with no previous media training whatsoever. And you were discovered when Bill went to go get a Fiesta Lime chicken at the local Applebee's.
He wanted to get the 2 for $20 deal. Who doesn't?
Correct. Now 2 for $25. So inflation, if our guy in the front
catches up with everyone.
If there's anything our guy in the White House can take care of, it's let's get this back down to 2 for $20 instead of 2 for $25 over at Applebee's. But yes, I'm hungry, and Fiesta Lime chicken, my go-to at the Bees, sounds very good. I've not had Applebee's in a really long time.
Well, you've been healthy in general lately, much more so than I am, generally speaking, anyways. But at first, when I saw that, I thought it was a Taco Bell commercial, and I was about to tell you how much Taco Bell I crushed the other day, and I was so excited. They have this new thing on the menu. It's like some chicken quesadilla burrito situation. Highly recommend. Anyways, there are other things that we have to discuss here.
Chicken quesadilla is the most underrated thing on the Taco Bell menu. I will just say that.
I've never had just the quesadilla, but the quesadilla burrito tops.
Very good. All
nails.
right, I'm going to look it up now.
It's like cantina style or something like that. They grill it. Very nice.
Okay.
We do have a lot to get to on the show today, including some baseball that's in action. So let's set the table with the rundown like we always do.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
We got some first pitch picks to get into. 8 games today, JVT, before 1 o'clock Pacific time. 2 in action right now. We are scoreless between the Pirates and Yankees, and we didn't end up getting to see a potential 15th straight win for the Red Sox yesterday against the Orioles. They're up 4-0 right now in the second. See if they can make a little history and tie that record.
I was going to say, they're well on their way to doing it already because they jumped out to a very early lead. All 4 of those runs coming in that bottom of that first inning, so looks like they're just not going to stop at this point, the Boston Red Sox.
Crazy.
Good for our own Gil Alexander, who's got them to have the most wins in the month of July. And Bennett, we'll see if he can hold on here. But Kramer, 4 earned runs, all charged to him. 2 strikeouts, though. So Red Sox, well on their way to getting it done. And like you mentioned, a good slate today, including Garrett Cole. Dishing, wheeling, dealing right now, bottom of the 4th inning against the Pittsburgh Pirates. He is 4 scoreless. He has struck out 6 up to this point.
We do have a couple games that are set to get underway in the next 15 minutes or so. Anything that stood out to you in Brewers, Mets, Milwaukee, a -162 home favorite with Logan Gilbert on the hill. Christian Scott starting opposing him for New York. And then we've also got the Royals and Giants going head-to-head with San Francisco, road favorite Landon Roop getting the start.
Nothing crazy. I will say, interested to see Christian Scott get the start here. We're talking about 59 2/3 and 13 innings for him, and they have been very good for the most part. Having said that, though, as we always talk about chasing that regression monster, the 2.87 ERA may be some fool's gold. 4.12 on the expected ERA. 377 fielding independent. Hard contact number somewhat up, so maybe at some point due for some regression. Does it come today?
As we continue talking through our top items today on the show, just 6 more Saturdays until college football is back on our television screens. In the meantime, we are getting ahead of it here on VSiN, breaking down the best ways to attack season win totals, conference, and CFP futures. Today, our Money Moves College Football Top 25 rolls on with LSU and BYU. We'll also talk more SEC with Media Days still ongoing in Tampa. Day 3 today. ESPN's Jordan Rogers called this SEC quarterback the best in college football this year, and he wasn't talking about Arch Manning, so we'll give our thoughts on that statement as well.
I mean, I don't need to follow up. It's quite the tease. I had my own baked and loaded and ready to go, but it doesn't really matter. That was strong.
Thank you. Usually I'm not very good at teases, but I've been working on it.
Baked, loaded, baked potato, Applebee's. It's all full circle.
You gotta relax, man. Meanwhile, let's actually get things started here. Headed out to South Beach in what was or wasn't a Miami mishap yesterday. In case you missed it, the Miami Heat social media team posted a link and has since deleted to a scheduled live stream titled LeBron James Introductory Press Conference. The date was set for July 27th. The spokesperson for the Heat told ESPN's Shams Charania the team's social personnel were, quote, prepared preparing for the possibility of James signing and mistakenly posted the link. So this isn't he's coming to Miami. The social team has the intel to set it. Well, that's what they're saying. The market, however, disagrees. At DraftKings, Miami was already a favorite plus 105. They're now a $2 odds on price. And we have said this day after day after day. These markets have been all over the place. Nobody knows anything at this point. But for that to happen, are we reading into it too much, or do you think it's real?
Yes. I mean, come on. What are we doing here?
Social media departments do know things before they happen.
To an extent, yes. But that would mean that the announcement has to be coming today.
Yes.
And that doesn't seem to be the case.
Well, now that got leaked, it definitely wouldn't, because now they're...
It's not. Look, he could well sign up with Miami.
Funny.
That was exactly what they're saying it is. You probably get it ready, testing it out, just to be sure and ready to go. It might shock some people, considering the way they handle their own lives. Professional outlets actually plan things and get them ready to go, just in case things are actually going to happen. And that might be a reality for the Miami Heat. So I don't think that means that he is coming. So, look, we're just desperate for any sort of news here when it comes to LeBron James. From a betting market standpoint, he is going to an extent, shape the way the Eastern Conference or Western Conference looks. I don't think so much the Western Conference. And it seems, again, that Golden State's on the outside looking in. But if he goes to any one of the teams that we're discussing, I mean, they are going to find their way at the top of the Eastern Conference when it comes to odds for the most part. So this is a very big fish that we're obviously still waiting for. And then we could start to bet some of these freaking futures.
Yes.
But was the report real yesterday, that he had his mind made up and then he changed his mind?
I don't know. How are we supposed to know? Because then you have Rich Paul also coming out saying that he hasn't decided and doesn't know when he's going to decide. So we're just getting information from everywhere. Nobody knows anything, and that's the way that it is. From a prediction market standpoint, Miami over on Kalshi, 50%, Cleveland 26%, Golden State 14%, very similar numbers over at Polymarket as well. There are also odds out there for inquiring minds at some of these prediction markets on when will LeBron's new team be announced as well. While, yes, we're going to take a break from the NBA futures talk until we actually know where LeBron is going to end up. Lots of WNBA on deck today. We've got a full slate of games before All-Star Weekend. Minnesota Lynx star Nafisa Collier going to make her season debut, coming back from double ankle surgeries. But speaking of ankle injuries, is Cam Skattebo poised to have another one? I'm sure by now you have all seen the clip of him doing the backflip at Fanatics Fest. Whoa, what was that accent? Over the weekend. His new head coach, John Harbaugh, was asked about his reaction to it on the Believe in Giants podcast yesterday. Let's take a listen.
My reaction when I saw it on my phone, my reaction was I haven't talked to him yet. I'm going to talk to him, I'm sure. But my reaction was this: dude, at least stick it. You know what I mean? Land the thing if you're going to do it. That was my first reaction. So, Scat's going to be ready to go. And he's been working super hard. He's really been training like crazy, and his mind is on camp. He's healthy, he's ready to roll, and I can't wait to see him out there at practice.
This is also, mind you, the second backflip that he's done publicly in the last month or so. He did a flip at the celebrity softball event at the end of May. Dude, you're coming off a scare. Do you remember when that injury happened, what it looked like? It was a dislocated ankle. He had a fracture and a ligament rupture. That was not a good injury. And I know he's a different breed of human. I understand. And he doesn't want to change being him. But shouldn't he be a little bit smarter? Is it when training camp's right around the corner? All
right, now usually what we'll do here, a little inside baseball, is you use an event to then springboard into a larger conversation, and it's exactly what we're doing, because I, in a vacuum, could not care less about Cam Skattebo and doing backflips. Having said that, to your point here, if we zoom out a little bit, Malik Neighbors and whatever's going on with his recovery has not been very good. We have Darius Slayton, who's a little dinged up too. Some of your skill position guys are pretty beat up, to the point where you're bringing in old heads to fill out your roster at wide receiver. So, to your point about maybe being a little bit smarter here, Cam's probably got to be a little bit smarter, considering the skill positions are already beat up heading into the most important part, which is getting ready for the season. So, yes, I would buy into the aspect of him not only being a little bit more careful, but I'm assuming that John Harbaugh, although I watched a very fiery speech for John in front of his new team right before he came on the air.
Where he kept repeating, this is the New York Giants.
And nobody was really buying it.
10 times.
I'm not going to freak out too much, but I'll just say that the skill position health is a really big deal for the New York Giants. And I think that does matter for a team that the betting market and a lot of other people are very high on because of the presence of that man, John Harbaugh.
And listen, Cam Skattebo is a bulldozer. When he's on the field and he's healthy, he runs through contact. He does all these things. He also hits his head on walls at times. And he has said
Remember
he's
Gus Farrat?
not going to change who he is. Who?
Gus Farrat?
What did he do?
That's a deep cut.
No.
He married, I believe it was Farrat or Farrot, how do you pronounce it? In a celebration after a touchdown, jammed his head into the wall. And it turned out that he actually jammed his neck and got injured because there was cement behind the wall.
Yeah, that believe it or not, that type of thing happens. But this does concern me a little bit for him when you look at some of his season-long props. He only was able to, season cut short after 8 games. You're coming back from an injury. We know the physical style of play is what you're known for. His rushing yard total, 824.5. You can also look in some of those 1,000-plus rush yard markets, whatever it is. The rushing touchdown, 6.5. But it's hard for as talented as he is, it's hard for me to not look to unders just because I don't know how healthy he's going to be the way that he manages his body.
I mean, I think on just unders for the team in general, there's a lot of belief in this group overall, from a win total standpoint, maybe even within the division to an extent, but I have my reservations. We'll see exactly what the Jackson Dart development is like. There is a reality that you could probably face in which, hey, maybe sometimes John Harbaugh, he had Joe Flacco, he had Lamar Jackson. Those are 2 pretty good quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And maybe their development was just natural as opposed to something that John Harbaugh had to do with. And maybe we are a little bit out to pasture when it comes to his ability to lead a team. I don't know if that's the reality. A lot of people don't think that's the case, but I have my reservations for them, especially when it comes to some of the health issues and how good they'll be on offense.
Yeah, I'm with you there. On the surface, you look at some of the talent they have and you want to be optimistic, but I'm not sure I can get there. The Giants, as well as all teams, will have fully reported to training camp by next Tuesday, July 28th. They are one of the later teams. Today, though, first day of veterans reporting. The Panthers and Cardinals, all with vets in the building today. Rams and 49ers will also start this week. Panthers, Patriots, Bills, Dolphins, and Texans all had rookies report yesterday. So we are getting the wheels turning. We are underway. We're also getting the wheels turning in college football. SEC Media Days rolls on from Tampa. We'll dive into some of the teams hitting the podium today when we return on Money Moves.
You're here because you want an edge. That's what separates listeners from winners. But let's be real, mindset alone doesn't get bets home. Pros win because they've got the tools, the data, and the discipline. And now so can you. VSiN Pro gives you access to the same real-time insights the sharps use. No secrets, no fluff, just actionable info that moves markets. Tap the link and see why serious bettors are turning knowledge into profit with VSiN Pro.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is so random, but I feel like I should share because we were discussing that Applebee's commercial. My dad actually texted me and said, funny you mention it. I had Applebee's 2 for last night with his friend Nacho. Got the Bourbon Street chicken and shrimp. So there you go. They're still kicking. Even though I don't work there anymore, my dad's still a regular. What are you going to do?
When are we going to go to this place that I keep hearing so much about?
For Kegs.
Yeah.
Yes, we got to get it going. My dad is going to come in town in August for us to sign up for Circus Survivor and get our entries. And I know we have to sign up for ours as well. So we can
We'll make a day of it.
Make a whole day. I'm so excited for you to, it's the best place because it's got amazing food, but it's all served on styrofoam plates and stuff and little bins, and it's a 10. It's a 10. Who doesn't love a dive? Las Vegas dive. Let's go. Speaking of diving, Gators do that into water last night.
There you go.
Maybe a little bit. Into SEC football. Yesterday we talked a lot about Auburn and their new head coach. Well, the Florida Gators have one as well. John Sumrall, former Troy, and then most recently Tulane head coach. And even though he's another G5 head coach from Louisiana, very different demeanor and temperament from Billy Napier. He is already really gripped, I think, a lot of the fan base out there in Gainesville, who was pretty disappointed that they didn't get Lane Kiffin initially. But when you look at what this Florida team can do this year, this is the first time in a number of years they're not facing the most difficult schedule in all of college football. It's not easy by any means, but a team that I know a lot of people expect John Sumrall to turn around relatively quickly. Yeah,
I have the SEC again, College Football Guide coming out at the beginning of the month, so make sure you check it out, vsin.com/subscribe. obligatory plug for everything we do, but you should sign up for our football special. Definitely worth it. So I'm having trouble with my third burning question for Florida, but one of my questions about Florida was about him, and the question was, does Summerall's magic translate to the SEC? And as I call him in the write-up, he's college football's King Midas. If you look at everything he's touched, it's pretty much turned to gold. Took over Troy, that was 15-20 in the 3 previous seasons before he got there. He goes 23-5, wins the Sun Belt twice. Leaves for Tulane, gets 20 wins in 2 seasons, gets to the college football playoff. So he knows how to build a program. The question just becomes, does what he wants, or is what he wants to do going to translate to playing in the SEC? And he is rebuilding a little bit here at a certain point.
A lot of it.
Right, a lot of it, and especially at the most important position, which is where you kind of start here. You talked about this at Media Days yesterday. We have Aaron Philo, who transfers in from Georgia Tech, but you also have, why am I blanking?
Tramel Jones
Tramel
Jr.
Jones, yes, who was retained from last year as well on the Florida roster. There's going to be a quarterback competition, and he talked about this during Media Days about how he thinks this is going to go down.
Yeah, I don't have a timeline. I've met with both those guys individually. I'll meet with them before we start training camp together. I'll meet with the whole room. Just because you start game 1 doesn't mean you start game 12. I don't have a timeline. My timeline, it may be 5 minutes before the game before anybody finds out. I mean, to me,
it's like one of those.
He said, I might not tell anybody until 5 minutes before we kick off game 1.
And I think it's Philo in the sense of, when a guy gets fired and then somebody else comes in, they always want to bring in their guys. Philo was brought in. His offensive coordinator, Buster Faulkner, was at Georgia Tech as well the last 2 seasons. So there is a connection there. There's a reason why Philo was brought in. So I expect that's going to be the case. But you have a brand new spot at quarterback. You're building a new staff. You're bringing in a lot of transfers. Can you rebuild Florida, and can you hit the ground running like you have at your last 2 stops?
Philo, he's kind of like biding his time behind Haynes King. He's a dual threat, scrambling type of guy. Very skilled, and will have good skill positions around the quarterback. One of the best wide receiver rooms in the SEC. Great running back. The offensive line, though, has a lot of questions, and you mentioned the turnover and how much change there is. Mass influx of transfers to this roster, 60 new players out of 118 on the roster, including the most important position, as you said. The defense also last year gave up more than 24 points per game. A ton of transfers are on that side of the ball, but there's lots of great potential. I know they've raved about their strength and conditioning room and all of the things that they've done because of all the leads that they surrendered or couldn't hang on to in the fourth quarter last year. Being able to stay sharp late in games is something that they have prioritized in their fitness, all of these things. They're doing all the right stuff. But when you look at the win total for this year, I feel like at 7.5, it's kind of right on the button. I see this as a 7 or 8 win season with some of those coin flip games. A couple cupcakes to ease into the season, FAU, Campbell, but at Auburn, what are they going to look like under Alex Golesh? Ole Miss is tough. Missouri, South Carolina. Back half of the schedule, things step up at Texas, Georgia, and Oklahoma. At least you get both of those at home. At Kentucky with a new look under Will Stein, and Vanderbilt, end of the year, Florida State. So I feel like that 7.5, 6.5 range, that's kind of right on the money, but I would lean under.
Yeah, I mean, the one that stuck out to me was actually under on the conference win total, 4.5 for them. I think the conference schedule is relatively tough, and you take away some of the mix of these other games, right? The Florida, maybe even at the end of the day, but the rest of these opponents that you're going to have to face, I mean, I guess it benefits you that you get to play host to Ole Miss and Oklahoma, but you still got to play both of them. These road trips, I think, are going to be pretty difficult, especially when you're talking about the Texas game. I think Auburn, you mentioned Golesh. Auburn has that upward mobility potentially, especially at the beginning of the year when you don't know anything about either of these teams. So I think that under 4.5 for the conference win total is probably going to be something you're looking at. And again, Philo was their guy because they went out and recruited him, and they have tailored an offense essentially to him, but doesn't mean he's going to work out. And what if he's not? And now all of a sudden you have some quarterback controversy for a team that was pretty anemic on offense a season ago too. So I would lean under on the under 4.5 on the conference win total is what stuck out to me for Florida for sure.
Yeah, long term, I'm excited for what Florida can be under John Sumrall. Short term, I don't think that they're going to take a huge leap this year. Looking at Ole Miss, that's another team that is out there on their respective podiums, coaches and players today in Tampa. On a historic run under Lane Kiffin, program won 10-plus games in 4 of the last 5 years, 11 last year in the regular season, which cost them their head coach. Lane Kiffin is gone, but we saw Pete Golding obviously take over, help lead the Rebs to a CFP semifinal, playoff wins over John Sumrall's Tulane team, and Georgia were a play away from a spot in the national title. A big reason why their quarterback, Trinidad Chambliss, which is someone ESPN's Jordan Rogers was very high on, to say the least, yesterday.
It's Trinidad. I think he's the best quarterback in the entire country returning. I don't think it's that close. There was no quarterback in the country that was more explosive while being efficient. I only expect him to get better. And I mean that. Even without Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr., I think they reloaded around him, and he is just scratching at the surface about how good he can be.
Agree or disagree?
I don't know about getting better, but I think there's a strong argument to be made that he is one of the best returning quarterbacks, if not the best, in the country. I mean, how many others would you realistically put up there with him? Arch Manning, right? I mean, it's a very short list of returning quarterbacks that are going to be up there. So, yeah, I think that there is some really strong potential for Ole Miss. They were obviously very underrated heading into the college football playoff, making the run that they did. So I would expect that Chambliss is going to be a contender for the Heisman and leading a team that has an opportunity to win the SEC so far this year.
I do think it's interesting in a conference, obviously, that has Arch Manning, who's your favorite in some spots to win this year's Heisman, that Trinidad Chambliss is sitting there like 6th or 7th on the board at 13-1, when in terms of what he could do this season, like, I know Arch has the #1 overall pick talk and all of that stuff, but what he could do this season, like Chambliss was unbelievable last year. And this is a guy who is D2 Ferris State, wasn't even supposed to be the starter, that just found magic. And we got to see that on display. He was able to get the 6th year of eligibility, which was massive in terms of putting them in a CFP and national championship conversation again this year. You also return running back Kewan Lacey, who had more than 1,500 rush yards last year, program record 24 touchdowns. You do have to replace both of your starting tackles, but the interior is pretty solid, and I know they feel good about who they have coming in there. And then defensively, that's Golding's expertise. So even with some of the changeover over there, I think you feel confident what he can do with that unit.
Yeah, I mean, like schedule-wise, too, you don't have to play Alabama, but you do have the other big boys on the schedule. You got Georgia, you have Texas. You have to make the road trip out to Texas, but you don't have to play Texas A&M. So it works out nicely for you when you get to SEC play as well, that you could potentially do some damage here. And the road trips outside of Texas and Oklahoma, not too daunting. Again, we'll see what Florida is, but I think you could work some magic. And we've talked about this, so we'll hit a little bit more on LSU as we go along, but I think there's some questions about how good LSU is, and I think you'd rather get them early on in the season because you don't know how effective Leavitt will be coming off of this injury. So, no, I think that there's some real potential here for Ole Miss, that with Chambliss, that wasn't just a flash in the pan, because there is a small potential that it was, that this team is going to be, again, contending for a college football playoff spot for sure.
I love so much that we're going to get those fireworks week 3 against LSU. So good. He threw
and they have to go out there. That's the best part, right?
Yeah. Threw for 4,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, Chambliss that is, while adding another 527 on the ground and 8 touchdowns, just 3 interceptions as well. And that's one of those telling stats for me that gets me excited about his potential, that, okay, you, even with all of the running around and crazy Houdini-like maneuvering that you were doing at times, you still took care of the football. And so if he can continue that, I think it's a recipe for success. Low win total for this team as well at 7.5. I know it's pretty highly juiced, but if you want to look at those alt win totals, you want to take this team to be back in the college football playoff again, think that they can do more with less on this schedule, I wouldn't fault you for that at all. As you mentioned, yes, our football special is going on right now. The college football betting guide is coming out August 3rd. I know you are finishing up all your write-ups this week. We had Adam Burke on the program earlier this week talking about all the great stuff that's going to be in there, a look at some of the new head coaches in new places, what their team expectations are, how to grade home field advantage, because not all are created equal, especially in college football. But if you go over to vsin.com/subscribe, you can join us on that full-time basis. That gets you access to the guides, but also unlimited access to everything we do at VSiN. The articles, all of the write-ups, the picks page, the prop tools, check them out today. We do have to step aside here real quickly, but when we come back, talking golf, we've got the 3M Open coming up later on this, I guess tomorrow. Yeah, it's already that time. Ryan Ballengee going to stop by and help us break down the field.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Got a long shot home if you had Ryan Fox last week at the British Open. Something tells me we're not going to get a winner with those types of odds back-to-back weeks as we welcome you back here to Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. The golf world turning its attention tomorrow to the 3M Open in Blaine, Minnesota at TPC Twin Cities. To help us break it all down, excited to have Ryan Ballengee join us here on the Progressive Guest Line, owner of Golf News Net. You can follow him on X as well at Ryan Ballengee. And a little bit of a surprise to see Scotty Scheffler back in the field this week, a prohibitive favorite. What did you make of the news when you saw him announced to participate?
Yeah, it was a real surprise. I did not expect him to come play this tournament. It's the week after a major championship. Most of the top players in the world are not going to bother playing the week after a major. This is kind of their downtime before the FedEx Cup playoffs. I mean, Ludwig Aubert said, see you in the playoffs. He's going to be done for 3 or 4 weeks. And Scotty Scheffler committing to this was a bit of a surprise, but it offers a good value in the field this week. There aren't that many top 50 players in the official world golf ranking competing here. He's obviously number one. And then you get down to Kurt Kitayama, Matt McNeely, Hideki Matsuyama, and that's kind of the back half of the top 50. So you get a little bit of value here this week because of Scotty's presence.
With Scotty, I mean, I would assume, because I'm going to follow my co-host logic a second, I'll assume something she's thinking. But I don't think he's entering this unless he feels like obviously he can win this, and he's kind of been flirting back with his form. So maybe this is just kind of a bloodletting, like, I got to come out here and win one, man, because this is getting irritating. How does he match up with this course? His game overall, we know how good he is, but how does he match up with a tournament like this?
I think he matches up pretty well. TPC Twin Cities, this is a golf course that has water in play on 12 of 18 holes. So while bombers tend to do well here, you've still got to be able to put the ball in play. Scotty is obviously the best tee to green player on the PGA Tour. It's where he struggled is wedges and putting this year. And that's going to have to be remedied on any golf course, whether he's going to win this year for a second time or not. So that's really the bugaboo for him this week. But I think he should like the setup from tee to green, a golf course he could be pretty aggressive. You're going to have to get to 19, 21 under to win this golf tournament. So he can kind of fire at flags this week.
Because there's such a stark divide between him and the rest of the field, if you were looking at outrights this week, do you still take the standard market, or would you have more interest in looking at the winner without, just so that you aren't necessarily risking Scotty Scheffler finally getting a win for the first time since week one?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on that. I mean, I think it's worth keeping Scotty in there because you're going to get so much better value on some of the guys that you're looking at in the 50, 60, 100 to 1 range compared to what you would get without him. So I think I'm willing to gamble that the wedging and the putting is kind of been the problem. That isn't going to get fixed in 6 days in a transatlantic flight. So I assume that's still going to be a little bit of an issue. And he can, of course, manage his way to a win here. That so be it. But I think I'm willing to take the risk for the value.
All right, so if there's a lot of other spots here, I mean, if we go a little bit deeper, is there somewhere we're looking? Like, how deep can we go on a board like this?
I like looking in the 50 to 1 range this week. It's a moth drawn to flame this week with, for me at least, in that range. Ben James is a great player, great young player, just came off of PGA Tour University. He's been in the top 15 in his last 2 PGA Tour starts. Those are opposite field events. They haven't been playing against the big boys quite yet, but T15 at the ISCO, T4 at Punta Cana last week in the Dominican Republic. Long hitter, college player, really should be familiar and comfortable with a go-low tournament like this. I really like him in the spot. Max Homa is in this range. He has been playing much better golf of late, played very well at the John Deere Classic, has acquitted himself quite well the last few weeks. And then I'm looking at Taylor Pendrith also, way down the board at 100 to 1. I see a little bit of an affinity between this host course, TPC Twin Cities, and the golf course that hosts the CJ Cup Byron Nelson, which is down there in Dallas, TPC. Greg Ranch, McKinney, Texas, which is where he has his PGA Tour win. Another very go-low tournament. And it doesn't quite as much make sense because there's obviously a lot more water in play here at TPC Twin Cities than you would see down in Dallas. But for whatever reason, there seems to be a correlation between players that play well there and players that play well in Minnesota.
You talk about going low. Kurt Kitayama did that last year, the defending tournament champion here at 23 under. Hasn't had a win this season, but 4 top 10s. There, like I said, has not been a repeat winner at this tournament. At 24 to 1, is he somebody that you would stay away from knowing that information, or any interest in Kitayama to go back to back?
I could go with Kitayama here. I can support that bet. This is a relatively young tournament. It's not that old, so unless you kind of catch a course specialist, kind of like thinking about TPC, Craig Ranch, KH Lee down there, who plays well in this tournament as well, you're just not going to get a repeat winner that easily. So I think Kitayama could be a guy who repeats. He's a long ball hitter. He likes tougher courses and tougher setups. He does really, really well on a lot of golf courses on the PGA Tour. He just has a very good tee to green game, and I think he fits the profile of a guy who could go back to back.
Are there any golfers you would look to actively fade and maybe play against in some matchups here for this tournament?
Yeah, I've kind of been down on Hideki Matsuyama the last several weeks. It just seems like he's kind of lost the plot a little bit. I would kind of go against him on a couple of matchups. I know Keith Mitchell's got some some low odds this week. He has not played particularly well, seems kind of out of gas after that run at the U.S. Open. And I know a number of people are kind of fading Jake Knapp because he has struggled in those last 3 tournaments. I think that's probably a good guy to go against in matchups, try to line up against those guys pretty well.
I know we've talked about, the outright angles, but a lot of times if you like a guy outright, you like him top 10, top 20. Are there a couple golfers specifically maybe you would target in some of those markets where the value is? Because there's a lot of plus money across the board.
Yeah, there's one flyer I really like in the top 10 or top 20 this week. That's Gordon Sargent. And he's another young guy, came out of Vanderbilt, was a world #1 amateur player, and really has not shown himself particularly well on the PGA Tour, but seems to kind of have snapped out of it recently. He's way down the board, 200, 250 to 1, depending on where you look. And I think he offers an interesting value here in a tournament where he's got to make up some ground on the FedEx Cup points list to even think about keeping his card. So I kind of like him in the top 10 and the top 20 this week.
Obviously, opening up with Scotty and what we talked about here, it's a little bit of a fly in the ointment considering what these tournaments usually look like. But in general, before we get to the FedEx Cup playoff, what does this look like in these next few tournaments? Is it pretty volatile? Can you get really wild value down the board? What do these things usually look like when there's not a big fish like Scotty?
Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting the next couple of weeks. Even Scotty here, if he doesn't win, you get great value with him being in the field, like we've talked about. You've got Detroit next week for the Rocket Classic, another go low tournament, where you're going to have a lot of players in the field who need to get FedEx Cup points, get in the top 70, and make that move pretty quickly. And then you get the Wyndham Championship down in Greensboro, North Carolina, which will be the cutoff to get into the playoffs. That's a little bit of a different kind of golf course. Classic Donald Ross, good scoring, but a little bit more of a challenging test. And you'll get some better players in that field in a couple weeks' time, just because some of them are going to be on the verge of not qualifying for that top 70. And they want to get in the top 50 as well, because that's where the FedEx Cup bonus money comes out now after this year. So it's the next tournament in Detroit will be a lot of value, a lot of longer shots. I'll have on my card for that. Wyndham Championship, not so much.
Well, for the guys that need those points, will we see, because usually we see this in sports all the time, right? I think the best example is week 18 in the NFL. Teams got to win to get in, so then the point spread really gets inflated. Will we see these guys maybe be too short, the ones that need the points to stay alive here, and maybe there's some value in going against them in certain matchups, things like that, because the market's overvaluing what they need?
Yeah, I think so. I think you'll see a number of those guys who are kind of hanging in that 60 to 75 range are going to probably commit to play the Wyndham Championship if they're not playing the next couple of weeks in Detroit, Minnesota. The field has really improved for the Wyndham the last couple of years now that they've shortened the number to get in the playoffs to 70. And some of those guys are going to be kind of desperate, but it'll be hard to make big moves in the tournament to get into the FedEx Cup playoffs for some of those guys. So they're going to have to finish top 2, top 3, top 5 to do it. And that's a lot of pressure on them. It's something to probably actively fade against.
You tell me, it feels to me kind of like a NCAA tournament bubble watch, right? Which teams are going to get in, which aren't. That's how this is in golf, right?
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. They've really tightened it up the last couple of years. And the next couple of weeks have always kind of gotten a bad rap just because it's after the Open Championship. There's a little bit of a hangover in golf after the final men's major of the year. But the Wyndham does kind of really turn out to be a mini or a pre-playoff event in a way, because you need to get in to get a chance at the big money. And you've got a number of guys that are kind of hanging around that bubble marker that you might not have expected in years past when it used to be top 100 getting into the playoffs.
Great stuff, Ryan. Great background today, too. Looks like a beautiful day out there for you.
We're having a great time. French Lick Resort down here in southern Indiana. The People's League, it's a YouTube creator league we're covering for Golf Newsnet, and we're having a good time. Nice weather today. Way better than yesterday.
It's awesome. Have so much fun out there, and thank you again for the plays. Ryan Ballingy, everybody. Like he said, Golf Newsnet. You can follow him on X as well, at Ryan Ballingy. He has a golf account on Instagram as well, Rife Ballingy Golf. I held off from asking him about one of my golfers today. Are you proud of me? Because you give me grief about it every single time I do, so I held off. We'll talk about it later on in the show, but it's Tom Kim.
No, everybody likes Tom Kim.
Can he have a Scheffler-like bounce back coming off the missed cut?
No.
Why no?
Don't like his game. Don't like where he's at right now.
What don't you like about it?
Tell you later.
After I do a quick Google search about Tom Kim recent results, is that what you mean?
No. And it's all up here. But, if you're going to tease it out, then I'll tease it too. Yeah.
Okay.
Down the road.
On that note, that will be part of the best bets a little bit later on to end the show, of course. But we are ending this hour in our next segment. We do need to step aside here real quickly. When we return, we will discuss the long-awaited return of Nafisa Collier to the hardwood. JVT's got thoughts on the 6-game slate in the W and perhaps some early All-Star weekend thoughts as well. Fair?
Sure.
You texted me about it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure.
This guy. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. More Money Moves after this.
Get that evil.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back here on VSiN, where we know the sports calendar never stops. It certainly doesn't stop for the Sharp Plays, who's covering it all, winning for 15 straight years. All of the plays documented, logs posted publicly as well at sharpplays.com. We know that kind of transparency can be rare in this industry. When the Sharp Plays moves, sportsbooks take notice. Advanced AI, trusted insider intel. They're finding value before numbers shift, and so can you. Start winning with them today at sharpplays.com. That's sharpplays.com. And obviously, as the sports calendar rolls on, the WNBA, a big part of that. I will ask you, though, as somebody who has been watching more of the W the last couple of years, and of course this season in particular, why are the schedule makers so terrible? We didn't have a single game yesterday, and now we're squeezing in 6 the day before All-Star weekend?
I don't know.
It makes no
That's a question
sense.
that is beyond my pay scale.
And unfortunately, we don't have Mike Palm coming up on Friday this week to get his 2 cents on it.
No, not at all. Never mind. I was going to ask a question, but
He's out of town for something.
No, I know that. It was something about a topic we were going to bring up with Mike, but it was too late to. Anyway, move on.
Okay. Well, like I said, there are 6 games coming up today, including a couple of them that are going to get underway in the next 20 minutes or so. One of which is, I think, fair to say, a pretty marquee matchup because.
Oh, do you?
Everyone has been waiting for Napheesa Collier to return. She's the star for the Minnesota Lynx, back-to-back MVP runner-ups the last couple years, and yet Minnesota, even without her this year, has still been the best team in the entire league. They're huge favorites today against Seattle, a team that they just played on Monday in a very close call. Ended up, I believe, just a 3-point win for Minnesota. They're laying 10.5 on the road today. How do you see this one shaking out?
Well, it's if you're going to follow recent trends, it would be that the Lynx haven't covered 8 straight games, so you're probably going to go against them, especially with the addition of Napheesa Collier coming off of, as you put it, double ankle surgery.
Don't hear that every day.
Yeah, surgery on each ankle.
Sorry to cut you off again, but I remember when we were talking about it earlier this season, you're like, yeah, it's weird looking at the injury report and seeing ankles.
Yeah, ankles. Yeah, not ankles. And then there's that weepy tribute video of everybody like, Napheesa, we're ready for you to come back. You have the best team in the WNBA. Relax. Like, she's fine. She can slow roll this thing. So that's going to be the question is you already had a team that was pretty overvalued by the betting market standards because they're very good. You had a player who was driving that in Olivia Miles, who had been very good herself. And now you get the presence of a player the caliber of Napheesa Collier, but clearly not going to be, or at least one would assume, the same level of player that she was when she was at the peak of her powers. Market is somewhat representing that too in the player prop angle, or player props at like 12.5 for her points, for an average of a 20-point per game scorer that we know she can be. So there is some expectation that there's going to be a muted presence. We also, I was looking, haven't seen much in terms of if there's going to be a minute restriction, anything like that. I would assume there is. So all this leads me to say it seems pretty easy, but lean here toward the Storm at home against the Lynx. I mean, this number's pretty big. They've been overvalued. You've got the return of Collier that might be overfactored. And I just think that this is more about getting her out there, getting some action, and then getting her out healthy as opposed to anything else. And we saw this bump up from 9 to 10.5 once she got announced that she was going to play. Is a player on a potential minutes restriction coming off of nearly a year of missed time really worth all that? I would say probably not. Yeah,
and you can tell, I mean, the fact that she's starting this game, they're doing it with the mindset of, like, okay, let's get her some action today, get her feet wet a little bit, and then see how her body responds afterwards, knowing that we have the All-Star break ahead of us. So that would be, like, I completely understand your handicap from that standpoint. My only, I guess...
Concern?
The only way I would combat that really is just because it was such a close call last game, and it's the best team in the league versus the worst team in the league. You, yes, have had Olivia Miles, who's been a revelation this year as a rookie, and finally getting to see her paired up with Nafisa Collier. Do they flex their muscles a little bit in this spot is the only thing that I would say. Because you had a close call the other day, is it that much more important for you to win by margin today?
And you do see in these baseball series, at least in the NBA, the team that failed to cover the last game coming back and being able to cover this time around. I think the Collier thing changes the dynamic a little bit here. So we'll see, because that's also part of it too, is getting her out there and getting some run, but also, are you purposely running plays? Are you willing to sacrifice margin of victory or even potential result, given how many games you won consecutively, for the sake of getting her a little bit more comfortable? And I do wonder if that's part of it too.
And the other game, same tip time as this Lynx Storm game we have coming up, is the Sparks and Mercury. Much shorter spread, however. LA laying just 1.5 at home, total 176.5.
Nothing really here. Injury report-wise, you kind of expect what you're going to get. Kelsey Plum remains out, and this has been a deal for about a month now for the Sparks. As we have seen, LA, they enter this thing. They've lost 4 straight, but they've covered 3 out of the last 4, so the market's gotten a little low coming off a road game against the Wings. And this road trip that they were on, the Sparks, is also part of the logic here, too. Finally coming back home. Now, I don't think this falls under the category of, like the old school handicapping angle of, you come home from a long road trip and you got to take care of the bills and the wife and all that stuff.
You see?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if that really falls into this, but I would not really have a strong angle other than looking at Los Angeles coming back home, but didn't really have much here.
You have obviously been paying close attention to the Las Vegas Aces. You've gone to a couple games, or was it just the one?
I've gone to 2.
That's what I thought. A couple, so literally a couple.
Yes,
They're in action today against the Mystics, who have been a pretty inconsistent team themselves. Vegas laying around 6.5, 7.5. I'm seeing some places.
Yep, and to your point, the Mystics, who are kind of battling for. It depends on what you want to do here, right? You can zoom out on the Mystics, coming off of a win over our Golden State Valkyries. By the way, they have covered 3 out of their last 4 games and have been consistent in the sense of they've won 3 out of those 5, and if you zoom out a little bit farther, it's 5 out of the last 8. So there's been some semblance of success here for the Mystics that I think you can build on in the larger picture. For Vegas, they are a team that just beat down the Toronto Tempo. We talked about this the other day with our guy and really got it done, 109-83. Ended up covering 10.5 here in that spot. And that was a good bounce back for them, because you remember this Fever had come out here and absolutely beat the pants off of them. So they were able to bounce back. They have not been as consistent, though. Again, it's kind of similar to what we've seen from the Lynx to an extent. When you get these really good teams, market just gets a little high. Numbers, I think, get away from you a little bit, and you tend to lay numbers that are a little bit bigger than you're probably at, or you're probably priced just right. So I lean a little bit here toward Washington, with Las Vegas hitting the road, coming off of a win against Toronto. I believe that was on the road as well. So I do think that maybe you're looking at a number that's slightly inflated against a team that does have a ton of motivation here, because the Mystics are in that playoff spot near the bottom of postseason. What's the word I'm looking for? Qualification. So we lean toward the Mystics, but I've also been burned by trying to find them in spots here and there. So small lean, but nothing crazy strong.
Well, do you feel it's an inflated number for the Fever today, laying 10.5 against the Connecticut Sun? They've won 3 of 4, find themselves atop the Eastern Conference right now, tied with Atlanta. Connecticut lost to Phoenix on the road most recently, but they've been better their last few games as well. How do you see this one?
Yeah, I think it would be, to me, Connecticut or nothing. The Fever, and Mike brought this up when we talked to him on Friday, just the general sense of the Fever maybe being a little bit better in the role of playing the dog as opposed to the favorite. Look at the last 2 times they were laying a number. They laid 8.5 against the Seattle Storm. They ended up winning that game 110-107, but they failed to cover that number. And then they lost outright as 2.5-point favorites at home against Golden State Valkyries, 88-75. But then you look at their last few games in which they have covered small dog against the Liberty, it's a 5.5-point dog against the Las Vegas Aces, as we referenced. So they have served, it seems, the role of dog better than it has been of the favorite. So I would kind of agree with that sentiment. You talked about Connecticut too, and the fact that if you look over some recent sample size for the Sun, the fact that from an ATS standpoint, they are playing quite a bit better. You go all the way back to June 22nd. They've only failed to cover 2 games. Now, one of them was the last time that they played, but you're kind of at this point where the Fever, very popular, I think, to an extent, maybe a little overinflated because of the presence of Caitlin Clark from a power rating standpoint. I do think that you can probably find your way into some of these numbers when they're laying some big ones. So it would be Sun for me here.
That said, I will say I was looking up Tyler Shoemaker, T-Shoe Index over at VSiN.com. He has write-ups every day in the WNBA. He actually has in his numbers, TSI predicts Indiana -15 today. Wow. the regression adjusted numbers, Indiana minus 16.5 even. So
you like TSU, you like them today.
He likes them by margin. Said Fever minus 10.5 or better if you're looking at it from that standpoint. Anything, 90 seconds left, but anything in Sky Liberty or Wings Fire that caught your eye?
No, we should point out, I'm pretty sure she's going to play, but Beckers, I believe, is officially questionable with some rest against the Portland Fire today. They are 5.5-point favorites on the road with a total of 175.5. So just a big injury to follow.
All right. That spread is 5.5. Wings laying 5.5 against the Fire in that spot. Total 175.5.
Oh, should also mention, I apologize because we were talking about this with the game that we were just discussing with the Sun. Should mention that you want Brittany Griner out there as well. Forgot to mention. She is questionable today.
And then that final spread, Liberty today laying 7.5 against the Sky. Total 178.5 on that one. Just for inquiring minds, nothing there, but worth noting.
You want a score update?
Sure.
The Boston Red Sox respond every single time. The Baltimore Orioles had cut it to 5-2, and you're thinking, all right, here we go. Orioles maybe going to make their way back into this after being down 4-0. And instead, Raffaello with a homer to left center to get it back out to 6-2. So the Red Sox continue to churn out these runs.
All right, we do need to step aside here real quickly on Money Moves. When we come back, still so much more to come on the program. Our college football top 25 rolls on, as does our NFL training camp tour. Today, we are stopping in Jacksonville, and plenty more Major League Baseball to come as well. A couple games that'll have first pitch in the next hour or so. Stick around, more Money Moves coming up after this with JVT and Stormy on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.